Little Nightmares 2 just dropped, so I want to talk about it. But to do so, I think the best way is to speak on its genre, the Limbo-likes. I know that's not a real term. Cinematic platformer is the academically accredited nomenclature, but this current crop of games have so much in common with each other that I might as well say my piece on their design ethos in general, since it'll apply to them all, basically. So, Little Nightmares 1 and 2 have clear origins in the OGs of cinematic platforming. Prince of Persia, Out of This World, Heart of Darkness. There are two trademarks of the genre. The first is a grounded sense of game feel, often accentuated with uncommonly expressive character animation. Generally, you've got the mobility of a very athletic person. It's out of my league, but you feel way more restricted by gravity and the limits of your body in these games than a traditional platformer. The other trademark of cinematic platformers is platforming and puzzle challenges that require very specific solutions to solve. These are games that pare down interaction to a minimum, so as to create a very focused, intended experience which only plays out if you follow its scenes to a T. Noah Caldwell-Gervais wrote how The Last of Us is what he labeled a flick sync, a game where you've been given a specific role and are incentivized to perfectly hit your marks. I personally take some issue with him calling The Last of Us that when Naughty Dog has a more deserving series sitting right next to it, but this lens is a good way to look at the cinematic platformers. There are no gimmies if you miss your mark. You must do the segment again, rethink your approach, and observe your surroundings to understand what the invisible directors want from you. Mechanics and level design are variable, but those two pillars always stand, and Little Nightmares is no exception to those foundational elements. In terms of game feel, you're a George Shrinks type jumping around these levels, barely covering a few human-sized feet in a bound and dragging around objects as large as you are. The player character animation in Nightmares 2 isn't inside levels of detail, but it comes off as nimble if restricted. Mono's sprint animation is a good example. I love the way he leans his head into it and the positioning of the limbs, it satisfies me. Alright, there's the game feel and a meticulously directed game experience. You do the set piece right, or you do it again. That's simple. Even if a jump is just too slow, you're crushed under some furniture and you have to go again. The pacing is extremely deliberate. So we've established Nightmares as part of the cinematic platformer category, but it was Playdead's Limbo that has the most direct influence on the series. It was in 2010 during the Xbox Live Arcade indie game renaissance that Playdead rejuvenated the genre with their contribution to the big-headed boy competition of the time. Like its forebears, Limbo had tightly crafted puzzles designed to surprise you and reward patient observation or a little premonition. Their challenge, while not impossibly difficult, reinforced what I think was the game's ultimate goal, to be a mood piece. That aesthetic, the hazy, monochromatic forest and factory populated by crudely animated shadow puppets that will stab, crush, and drown you until the credits. It's a noir for people who don't like detective serials, but do like a strict adherence to the 180-degree rule and the gruesome death of children. The lack of dialogue and text keeps the experience visceral, primal, in the moment. No time to think about context or character, you just go, you just survive. That was the mood it strove for, dreadful survival. Previous cinematic platformers like Out of This World, Heart of Darkness, and Abe's Odyssey were also about surviving harsh circumstances where death was everywhere, but they were maximalist by comparison. Two of those games featured 3D rendered cutscenes giving lighthearted context to the grim events going on, and Out of This World becomes more of a sci-fi adventure as it goes along. Limbo's adherence to its minimal and dark mood was unlike anything that had come before. This is why I consider the Little Nightmares games to be Limbo-likes, because they use similar narrative and gameplay techniques to also create a dark mood piece.
Cool, Zach, you big baby man. You've formally identified what category Little Nightmares 2 belongs in, but what did you think of it?
Oh, yeah, I thought it was good. I'm a fan of its genre, and it does that genre justice. The puzzles, while they're mostly just figure out how to platform to a spot or avoid trap, ask me to consider the level design and still have me feeling clever even when I'm not spending too much effort moving through. The set pieces, they were some good spectacle, had my heart racing a little bit. The few moments of combat suffered from really specific timing, but that's my only gripe, I'd say. In contrast to what others might feel about the game, it didn't scare me. I've been desensitized by my previous experience with the genre, so I know that the creepy long-necked teacher lady can only momentarily halt my progress, and she won't look into the boxes they teach you to hide in. I've identified them as obstacle, so that's how my brain treats them. That doesn't make Little Nightmares 2 bad though. In fact, my relative expertise with the genre made getting into character natural and immersive. I tend to play along with a game when it presents a story like this, meeting it halfway to help me see the most interesting in-character sequence of events. Avoiding moments where I'm bashing my head against the wall or misunderstanding what the game asks of me keeps me in that headspace. I'm reminded of what Hamish Black of Writing on Games wrote way back in 2016 about Inside. Good God, that was 5 years ago.
The second playthrough, however, took me just shy of an hour and a half, and whilst I still had my issues with the game, it felt like it flowed so much more effectively and coherently.
Clicking with a game better on a second playthrough isn't ideal, but with Little Nightmares 2 that wasn't necessary. My a priori knowledge of how these games work lubed me up for a better time with the game. Being in sync with the director made everything just that much more satisfying. Plus, you collect hats in the game to customize your little guy a bit, and I wore the raccoon hat because it made me feel like a little country boy lost in the big city. I swear to God, that's how I thought about it, and I loved it. Being Rasputin is cool, but a wannabe David Crockett is my jam, apparently. So yeah, if you like this type of game, the first Little Nightmares, or Limbo, or Inside, I'd say give this one a go too. It's a short and sweet little experience with some tense set pieces and a nasty world to discover. If you've got someone you've wanted to share games with who are new to them and like horror, this would be a good one to put in front of them. Don't be a dick and leave them hanging if they can't figure out what to do, but I think the horror might land for someone with less experience, and it won't be demanding for them to play. Now, I'd like to talk a bit about the narrative of this game, which requires a spoiler warning for this and the first game. I've avoided using too much footage from beyond the first hour of play to keep things fresh for any prospective players, but pretty much everything I could say about what happens in this game is a spoiler. The events of it are intertwined with the gameplay, and revealing any aspect of the journey ruins the surprise, and it's not like a combat game where you can afford to see what happens without truly understanding what's going on. It's plainly obvious what you have to do. So yeah, if you care to play these games, skedaddle. We good? Good. So what Limbo also paved the way for is an allegorical style of storytelling. Without dialogue or text, the images presented to the player carry less specific interconnected meaning. Without concrete context like verbal signifiers, we're left without a diegetic reason for this boy running through this forest. It's like a poem, or Angel's Egg. You just gotta take the symbols and make something of it. Inside, I feel leaned much more into this angle than Limbo, with the obviously Orwellian imagery, and that ending that I can't show here, but it gets my brain juice flowing. Anyway, this is how I perceive the Little Nightmares games, as allegory. There actually is a good amount of lore hunting on YouTube for them, and while those videos feature some good detective work, I'm not so much interested in understanding the true plot than constructing some meaning based on the symbols I can connect. Both of these games are pretty plainly about the fear and anxiety of societal control. The predominant symbol of the series, the freaking autosave icon, the eye. These small, innocent children are under ever-present surveillance in this world that seeks to consume them. Consumption is what I consider the main theme of the first game. The girl you play, 6, finds herself in a sort of sea fortress called the Maw. The place appears to be a human factory farm, raising people to be cooked and served to these gluttonous visitors. The twist this takes is that 6 becomes corrupted by her situation, forced to violently consume herself. First it's a rat. Unpleasant, but understandable. Then it's one of these cute little pointy hat guys. You go from discovering them alone in hidden pockets of the ship, giving them hugs and loving up on them, to devouring one's flesh. Even when I saw it coming, it was a heel turn that still bummed me out. The last thing she consumes is the final boss, the mysterious magical woman who oversees the whole operation. It grants 6 the power to escape, snuffing the life out of all of those violently clamoring to swallow her whole when she scampered away through earlier. To escape her circumstances, she had to lose her innocence and become like the people who sought to consume her first. It's a tale of what happens to those who are indoctrinated into a system of oppression, or find themselves given no agency to choose a meaningful alternative. Revolutionary action might mean having to use the tactics you've been forced to endure yourself. Is what 6 had to do a necessary tragedy, or a cathartic triumph? The reading is up to you, and it's fun to ponder. The second Little Nightmares is more complicated, harder to pin down. This time you play as Mono, a little boy who has a special connection to televisions, this game's foremost motif, extending the metaphor of watching from the populace being watched to them compulsively bound to watch whatever signal the tower centered in the city controls them with. You save 6 from captivity by a hunter, and again venture through hostile territory to get somewhere without the looming threat of violence. Having 6 with you creates a latent sense of camaraderie, with her AI giving you boosts to otherwise unreachable platforms, or using a pulley every now and then. This isn't eco. 6 can act in a situation and helps direct the player on what to do. Your relationship isn't fleshed out much beyond that, but cooperation is an important theme that gets twisted in the conclusion. Mono rescues 6 from the signal tower, where she's been transformed in this big bendy arm monster. But on their escape from the eldritch amalgam of eyes, 6 lets you fall into the bowels of the tower while she gets out. Why she does this isn't clear, but what I read into it is that maybe 6 was okay having turned into that nightmare. She had her music maker, she defended it with some of the hardest slapping hits I've seen in a while. She was comfortable being incorporated into the Signal Tower's world. 6 represents someone who grows to defend a system they received the benefits of, even when they were subjugated before. And what happens to Mono when he falls into the abyss? He is incorporated too, becoming the Thin Man, a character who chases you in the previous chapter. This story is more plainly a tragedy here, where the Eye has the power to destroy the common ties between people in an effort to use them for its own ends. There's more to this game to think about, like the dehumanized artificial denizens of the school and hospital, and the possibility of time travel, but other people have done the work Pepe Silvaing everything in the Little Nightmares universe. At the level I understand it, these games use the conventions of their genre to create unique handcrafted worlds, tense encounters with uncanny characters, and allegories with prescient points that resonate and stick with me. What more could you ask for?
I'm just. We cut this. Lamb Hoot, JC, and John Beatty. That's me. Come over here. We found the Patreon money, and we're not stopping digging until we get it back.